What is up, Sopranos fans? Kino here, and I am back with another day of Sopranos Timber. Today we're looking at the 15th episode of Season 6, Remember When. Paulie arrives at Tony's house early one morning, and he tells him that the feds have found the body of Willie Overall. Willie Overall was a bookie that Tony killed in the 80s, and he was Tony's first kill, actually. His first step in becoming a made man. They learned that it was actually Larry Baris who told the feds about Willie Overall, and this might have occurred last episode when Larry got pinched at the cast and premiere party when he was supposed to be under house arrest, so they might have used that as pressure to get him to give them information. But they decide that the best thing they should do is to leave town in case there's a warrant out for their arrest, so they decide to head to Florida to play it safe for a while. Meanwhile, Junior is still locked up inside the mental institution, and he's visited by Uncle Pat, who suggests a plan that they can break him out. They'll arrange a dentist appointment for him to go to, and then they can escape with him to a safe house. However, Junior is easily distracted, he's not really focused on the plan, and we can see his mind starting to slip. Inside the institution, he's befriended this Chinese kid named Carter. I don't know where I got the name Kino from. But either way, Carter admires Junior because he stands up for himself, something that he himself struggles with. Together, they throw a poker game to make some money off of the inmates. It's just like the executive card game that Junior used to run, except only a lot sadder. Eventually, though, one of the other patients, a professor, rats them out and gets the game shut down. Meanwhile, Tony and Paulie continue with their road trip. They start the trip having a good time. They're reminiscing about the past, and they're really getting along pretty well. We also get a cameo during this time from Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton. However, Tony quickly becomes annoyed at how much information Paulie gives out to strangers. Paulie is really talkative, and he just tells anyone he meets anything about himself, even though they're supposed to be laying low. All of this makes Tony remember the incident with the Ginny Sack joke, and he realizes again that it was probably Paulie who told Johnny Sack that information. And he starts to think that Paulie might be a liability because of that mouth. He already gave information and almost led to, trouble between the families. He thinks it's only a matter of time before that happens again. Meanwhile, Junior gets comfortable in his life inside the institution. He turns down Pat's escape plan because he has nowhere to go. And he's actually pretty comfortable on the inside with like a TV and people he can boss around, so he decides to stay there. Eventually, he gets into another fight with the professor, and the staff put him on drugs that keep him numb so that he won't make trouble with the other inmates. It's very reminiscent of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's kind of the story they're trying to tell here. With Carter's encouragement, though, he stops taking his medication and he returns to his old self. In Florida, Tony meets with Beansy Gaeta. Beansy retired there after the whole incident with Richie. And Beansy tells him that Paulie genuinely loves Tony. He is talkative because he lives alone and he has nothing else in his life, but Beansy doesn't think Paulie would ever betray Tony like that. Again, I do like to point out the fact that he was talking with Johnny Sack about potentially replacing Tony. So we can see that even though he does love him, there is some doubts to his loyalty. And Tony himself continues to doubt Paulie. He decides to take Paulie out on a boating trip, and this trip reminds Paulie of when they killed Pussy. So Paulie is very anxious, thinking he might get killed on this trip. And Tony does think about killing him. He tries to get him to confess to telling Johnny Sack about the joke, but Paulie denies everything. In the end, though, Tony decides not to kill him. They later learn, too, that Larry told the feds that Jackie Aprile did the murder, so they're safe for now, and they can return to New Jersey. Back in New York, Phil has dinner with Doc Santoro, who has become the boss of the Lupertazzi family. There's this great scene where the Doc literally tries to take food off Phil's plate, which is a really disrespectful thing to do. And we can see in this moment that Phil decides to get rid of this guy. And later on in the episode, we do see him whacked on Phil's orders. And with Doc dead, Phil steps up as the boss of the Lupertazzi family. So we can see that his promise to Butchie from last episode is fulfilled. He's not going to roll over anymore, and instead he decides to step up and take leadership of the family. Meanwhile, the doctors find out that Junior has not been taking his medication, and they threaten to transfer him to another facility unless he cooperates. So he agrees and starts taking his medication, and he becomes more calm and less aggressive to the other patients. Now, Carter views this as a betrayal of their ideals. Remember, the whole reason he liked Junior is because he was aggressive and stood up for himself, and that's what Carter wanted to be. So when he sees Junior getting along with everyone and being part of the system, he ends up attacking Junior and leaving him very injured. And at the end of the episode, we can see that Junior is left broken and nearly catatonic. It's a very sad state to see him in. And it's also sad that this is one of the very few glimpses into Junior that we get this season. He's not featured very prominently, and it adds a lot of sadness to the season because he was one of the best things about this show. But that is the episode Remember When. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next Soprano vlog coming tomorrow. Remember When is the lowest form of Soprano analysis. Hunter, Tommy Smith, Abdallah Alamari, Russell, Sean, Graham, Rooftop, Rico Bellic, Heart of Markness, Broccoli, Isaiah, Placenta Juan, Logan, Clean, John Reyna, Lance Klump, Jesse Sterling, Andrew Stewart, James, Konchak Chofel, Obsc Racing Media, Daz J. Kit, William Lanson, Conan Higgins, and Elizabeth Ellis.